wardrobe malfunction. The shirt that I was wearing on camera was being cut off, and it looked like it was losing arms and gaining arms the entire time. So I had to run around and throw something on real quick. So I apologize for being a little bit late here. Anyway, hope you're having a great week. And as we have, Jesus, almost a couple weeks till Christmas at this point, and I hope everyone is calm and not running around and not too frenetic today. I wanted to talk about, I've got a variety of notes that I want to go through today because I've had some interesting experiences over the course of the last week or so, where I've had some interesting clients who have brought some interesting problems to light. And it's something that I keep running into. So it's something that I kind of wanted to discuss this evening with everyone. And that is when spirits won't go. There have been occasions in my life where I have had challenging spirits to work with. And for whatever reasons, they're adamant about staying. So we'll get into a variety of reasons why spirits stay, why they hang around, what they're looking for, and what they could possibly want, why they seem to be annoying, or why they're problemsome, and challenging to work with. So we'll get into all of that this evening. So we'll try and relax myself here a little bit to running around at the last minute here. So have a sip of beer and get started. So one of the things that I want to talk about, I guess, is why spirits won't go completely. So let's go again at what spirits are, why they might be around. So most of the time, you can have, again, different types of residual energy. You can have spirit energy that is visiting. You have spirit energy that is in residence at your home. There can be a variety of ways and reasons why, and they could be lower energy. It could be something, not great. Could be angelic, could be demonic, could be whatever type of energy you have at your home. And different types of energy require a different way to look at it and work with that energy. So let's talk about what I run into mostly, and I guess the cases this week. One of my clients that I'm going to go see, but I've already kind of solved most of it over the phone before I go there, but I do have to be there in person to resolve the matter. So I got a phone call from a woman down in Miami. I'm up in Fort Lauderdale. So she called and she stated that she has had a spirit that's been around her for about 38 years. And she knows who it is. And I won't get into all that at the moment, but her knowing who it is made my life much easier because this happened right after this individual died. And she got a visit right away from that spirit. And the spirit has hung around and just continued to bother her, no matter what she does. When she's getting dressed, when she's going to work, when she's in her car, at family functions, when she's sleeping, in bed with her husband, this spirit is around, and it just she doesn't know what to do. She has gone to santeros. She's had another medium or so come into her home to try and work with this energy. And one of the things that I realized right off when I was speaking with her was that this energy, usually when this happens, in my experience, this has always happened when a spirit passes and does not cross completely. And they're so attached to life in general that they don't want to go anyplace. They don't cross over. They don't go into God's light. They stay. And when this happens, they try to latch on. They want they enjoy their life so much, or something about their life so much, either person, place, thing about their life, that they resist going. And when that happens, it puts them in some type of, not a limbo state, but in a state where they get locked into trying to perceive that life is normal when it's not for them. Because in normal existence, when the spirit leaves the body, the spirit would go on a spiritual journey, would get to the other side, and would continue to go on acquiring life lessons. In this case, the spirit was so attached to life and to the living that the spirit wanted to remain here to continue to experience life as he knew it. And that becomes problematic for the living. And when I told her that this is what's going on with that spirit, it made sense to her knowing the personality. And I said, look, this personality is a know-it-all personality. It's not going to take no for an answer. It is stubborn and does not want to go anyplace. It feels that this is the existence that it has and the best way to communicate with the spirits that it wants to communicate with. In this case, it wanted to communicate with his wife. And apparently, when I asked this woman about this man and this woman's relationship, this man and his wife, the spirit and his wife, about the relationship, I was told it was extremely close, extremely loving. And this is what this gentleman is stuck in at the moment. He wants to be around this woman so desperately, and he wound up being attached to his daughter. And that's where we are. So the mother's still alive, and the daughter is having to deal with this issue. I told the daughter when I was speaking to her today that I don't believe that the mother wants anything to do with spirit at all. And she told me that's absolutely correct. That her mom really is against anything that has to do with spirit. Doesn't want to communicate with him. Doesn't want to. It would scare her too much. So she doesn't want to pay attention to the signs, the symbols, anything that she's being given. She doesn't want to dream about it. She just wants it to be over. And that type of kind of negative attitude, that type of I wouldn't say anger, but that type of just being closed-minded enough and not wanting to be open to spirit, even somebody that she loved, makes her life challenging and makes her life difficult to live with. According to the daughter, that she's never remarried. The mother has never remarried since the death, and it was a sudden tragic death. And now we have a variety of issues. So we have a variety of things that we have to solve. So imagine all the problems here. You've got a widow who is closed off spiritually now because the death of her husband hit her traumatically hard from a spiritual sense that she almost stopped believing in God in a way. Why this man would be taken from her, why this love of her life would be removed at this juncture of her life, all of those things that she has to deal with. So that's one issue. Then we got the issue of the departed, who in spirit feels that the best way to be able to communicate with his wife is being in this limbo state of not crossing, so that this is where he feels that he can work with the mother in some way. But since the mother won't have anything to do with him and is closed off to any signs, symbols, or reasoning of that he's trying to communicate in some way, he went to the daughter, and the daughter apparently sees her mother 3-4 times a day, she states. And this is where the spirit can latch onto her and see her and kind of live his life a little bit vicariously through the movements of the daughter. Well, this, as you can imagine, is, if you can imagine having almost, a conjoined twin at this point, where following her around all the time, trying to be involved in her life, and it's annoying to her. And so we've got my client who is being annoyed constantly by her father. We got the widow, and we've got the spirit itself, which all have separate issues, and looking at this scenario from different perspectives, obviously. So my job will be, in this case, to go and work with the spirit to make sure that the spirit realizes what the spirit is doing and has been doing. It's not allowing his daughter to live her full life because she always feels that there's something around her that should not be there. So her existence is being troubled through this process. In spirit, he would have much more of an influence with his wife, with his widow that's still here, because he would be able maybe to come in her dream state or in other ways that he could influence her life and get his messages across. Right now, he's basically a bystander watching what's happening in this woman's life without being able to communicate in some way. This is where I enter the picture. So what's the message? So I'll have to, I have, today's Tuesday, next Monday is when I have the visit. So I'll have to update you on a future show. But the issues that are raised here are multifold. And one of them is going to be with this gentleman who has passed. He doesn't understand all the ramifications for his actions. Now, his wife is now at a point where she may cross at some point. And what's going to happen is she will cross. And when she goes to God's light, now he's still stuck and he won't be able to cross. And so he's not going to get what he wants. He's not going to, the process of being together at that point is going to be very, very challenging. So I need to explain to him what he's doing to himself, why he's doing this, and what the ramifications are to him not crossing at this juncture. So I really need to get him to cross. So that will be the first thing that I will need to talk to this gentleman about is look what you're doing and look at the consequences to your actions. And there will be a price that he has to pay when he crosses to really atone in some way for how he stunted in some relative fashion his daughter's spiritual journey, as well as his own. And because of his stubbornness of not wanting to cross, because he wanted to have this experience with his wife in a different way than what it was meant to be. So we have him doing this, and that's going to be the first explanation to him as far as what he needs to do, how he needs to do it, and the ramifications for his actions. I think once he understands everything that he's doing and the kind of the error in his thinking, that will change his perspective, and I should be able to get him to cross. I don't think my spirit guides are being very clear that this should not be an issue with this particular gentleman, although he is completely stubborn. I don't think anybody's explained to him before the ramifications for him doing what he's doing. So I think once we get the buy-in and once we find out, I've asked the client to send me photos and names of relatives so I can kind of tap into them so that they too can do their job of trying to help move him across and show themselves to him so they can help rectify the situation. So that's one example that has just happened. That was today. And I have another one today with another client. And this one is interesting because, so if you go to the first one, it's not really, it's kind of a spirit in residence. It was basically haunting the daughter and will remain there until either the daughter crosses or the mother crosses. Or if we move him across and then he can move on. But that's basically a spirit in residence because he is always there. He's omnipresent in the daughter's life. She can't get rid of him. When she gets up in the morning, she sees him in the, in her bedroom, in the dining room, again, in the car, at work, at other places, still sees him around. So she wants it to end, and I want it to end for her because it's not a way to live, and it's really being very selfish on the part of the departed to put themselves above the natural order of what should have occurred when he passed would be to naturally go to the other side, which he himself prohibited by his own actions. So we'll resolve that situation. I don't think there's going to be a problem and an issue doing so in that way. And then going again to what I was talking about today. With another client is somebody that I've been to see twice before. And while they have had other issues at the home, there has been one constant in the house. And this is an older Italian couple. And they thought maybe they had some bad luck or something. They weren't sure what was going on in the house. And sometimes it increased and sometimes it wasn't so bad. And what they found out was that when I came the first time, I did a house blessing and house clearing and got rid of there were 3 or 4 spirits around them that were couple in the house and one that was visiting, but there was also another visiting energy, which was his mom. And this energy is strong, very, very strong, kind of like my mom, strong, who, basically no matter what I do, she lets herself and her presence be known, not every day. But when there's something going on in my life that she wants to put her 2 cents in with, she makes sure that I know that her 2 cents are heard. And this is another similar woman who was very opinionated, and the soul really has things to say about her son and trying to get him to do the right thing. Again, he's probably 75, 80-ish, and he really needs to get a handle on different aspects of his life. So he has this constant support of spirit, which is a great thing. The problem that happens when you have a very strong spirit like this is it can be overwhelming with them trying to give you information, details, and try to get you on a better course of life. And that's what she's trying to do. Well, in the home, it doesn't feel that way because the way that she manifests herself in the house, again, this is a visiting spirit. So this is when there's stress, when there's issues in the house, this is when things start to ratchet up in the home and the way that she lets her presence be known. So there were, again, I've talked about things before in the past where, they may leave a feather, they may leave a penny, they may do this constantly and do different things. And if you don't pay attention to the signs that they're leaving, they start to ratchet up their activity so that you get it. And then unfortunately, at that point, they kind of usually stay with that last one that got your attention because it does get your attention. And in this case, that's what the mother did. She crawls up between the ceiling and the roof, and she goes through the attic area, and she makes noise over his bedroom. So that's where it sounds like animals. It sounds like something, scratching around up there and making noise. But sometimes there's a thump. Sometimes there's very heavy stuff. So obviously, everybody's like, well, maybe it's rodents. And that's usually the first question I have too. Maybe it's rodents. So I asked if they'd had the house inspected. They had a complete house inspection. They had, people in the roof. They had people, all things, going on to see whether there was a physical, real world cause for the noises that he was hearing. And after all the checks, after everything that had been done in the house, when I was there, I felt what she was doing, and she told me what she was doing and why she was doing it. So as you've heard me talk in the past, got the message that she wanted to convey, gave it to the client to figure out what, so that he knew what the message was. He understood the message. And I just asked her then to pull her energy back so that it's not so omnipresent in the house, not so challenging to listen or hear, because it does scare this man to have this. Even though he knows who it is, he doesn't like that sound. He doesn't like what's happening. So I asked her to pull her energy back, and she did after the first visit, and no issues for about maybe 10 months or so. And then it came back again, and he asked me to come back. He and his wife asked me to please come back, and I went back to the home. And again, there was something major going on in their life that the mother had information on that she wanted to share. It had to do with other family members who were going to be experiencing issues and problems in the family, and just wanted them to know, wanted him to act as a patriarch of the family to do certain things and take certain actions, which he did. And again, the activity in the home settled down, and I got another phone call this week. So this is again around the holidays. I feel and sense that there is something going on health-wise that he needs to be aware of. That's the sense I'm getting already. And once I convey the message, everything should settle down again. But I can't stop her. I can't. Can I banish her from the house? Yes. Do I want to? No, because this is a spirit who's looking out for his well-being and should be in his life, and he should be getting the signs and symbols. Now, he can do this a lot himself. He does get her in his dream state. But when it happens, he kind of gets scared and kind of refuses to listen. If he could get a handle on his own emotions surrounding his mom's passing, she's been gone 25 years or so. If he could get his handle around the passing and put that behind him so that he wouldn't be afraid of what's going on, he'd actually probably not need me to come back, because he would be able, in his dream state, to be able to get the messages that she's giving. Being the way that he is, again, he too is a little bit on the stubborn side as it relates to spirit. And even though he knows who this is and that there's a message, he kind of puts, spiritual earplugs in and doesn't really want to hear what's going on. So I really want to go over there, and I'll be going over there this week, to find out what the new situation is. I'll have to update again, probably next show, next Tuesday. I'll have to be done with both of these then, and can talk more to what actually happened, what occurred. I have my feelings now on everything that's going on, and I'm good at what I do. So they're giving me messages already and letting me know what the direction is that I have to work. So I won't know exactly what I need to do until I'm actually there. Spirit is very, very good about telling me the steps that I need to take, how I need to take them, and giving me the information so I can go through this necessary steps to help my client. What do they want? What's the message? And I guess that's the overarching aspect of today's show would be listen to spirit, listen to what they're trying to tell you. Again, spirits have a way of trying to get their voice across, and it's challenging at times to try to understand what is happening in your home with what when you think everything is normal and then strange things start to happen. Again, like I've said many times on the show, don't automatically assume it's negative. You can assume that, are you having spirit activity? Potentially. Look for the causes that would be real world causes. It could be, an air conditioning unit that's blowing air. It could be, mice in a wall. It could be a tree branch. Whatever it happens to be that may be causing you concern. Deal with the problems when they arise. I always found that dealing with problems is always helpful in life, not just kind of sweeping them under the rug. So one of the things that you really need to do is to figure out whether there's a real world cause for what you're seeing, sensing, or feeling in your own home. Because again, your home should be your sanctuary where you go and you feel comfortable. If you've tried a variety of avenues and all things physical don't seem to make sense, then I would start to look at the spiritual aspect of things to find out whether there might be a spiritual connection. Always when you're doing this, you want to go back to the time that it started. What did you notice that was strange? What did you notice that was different than normal, maybe in every other house that you lived in? Has this been a recurring thing that has happened in every house that you've lived in? When did it start? What year? What era? In this case, I have one that's been going on for 38 years. So when did this actually start for you? And then once you kind of try to understand when it happened, then you can look at what the messages may be. So what are they doing? Are they leaving a feather? Are they leaving a penny? Was the penny a joke between you all the time? Before he or she passed, did they say they're going to leave pennies around the house for you? Try to think of what the message may be for yourself. It makes my job a lot easier when I go to the home and say, this is what I'm seeing and this is why. And if you already know what that is and have thought through that process, it makes my life much easier to try and do my job. So because it pinpoints maybe who it is for me, which makes, again, they may be telling me, but I don't know who these spirits are. They're new to me. They are not new to you for the most part. So try and figure out who they are and what they may want, or a message that may be trying to be conveyed by this interaction in some capacity. Once you have done all of those things, don't be afraid unless there seems to be harm. I've always told everybody, if something is trying to hurt you, you're being scratched, you feel you're being pushed downstairs, there is a fire in the house, any number of things where it could cause physical harm to you, that's sometimes they just call a medium. Find somebody that you can work with. Reach out to me if I can't do it. I'll maybe help find somebody who can for you, or maybe ascertain what's going on in the house a little bit better. Try to do those things. If there is a little bit more of, if there's an odor of some type, if it's a good odor, that's usually kind of a good omen. If it smells like roses, if it smells like cookies, if it smells like, even tobacco can be a good odor in the sense that it may have been a grandparent or father or husband or son or somebody or daughter that smoked and is maybe trying to communicate with you, and this would be a scent that you would associate with that individual. That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. But if you're smelling feces or garbage or something that's foul in odor, that's probably not such a good thing. So try to get as much detail, write it down, because you're never going to remember all this when I call, because usually when I get the call, it's usually fear-based. This is happening, please get here as soon as you can. And that's not a good way for me to come into a site, into a situation. So know what you're talking about and try to ascertain for yourself what it may be. If it's negative, get somebody there immediately. If it's positive, and you don't feel like you're being hurt in some way, you can try and figure that out for yourself to see what you may be getting, if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense in some way, to figure out what they may or may not want. And try and maybe have those conversations with yourself. If you know who the person may be that's doing it, in this case, she knows it's her father in the first case I talked to you about, but she's not asking all the right questions. She's never said stop. She's never, in 38 years, she's never told him to stop doing what he's doing. So that would maybe be the first thing. Or the first thing may be, what do you want? How can I help? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to convey? I see you all the time. You make my life challenging, but what do you want? Come to me in my dream state. Tell me there. If you can't communicate with me on this plane in this way, communicate with me in a way that I'll understand it, through a song title, through on the radio, turn on the radio and say, put it on a station where I'm going to understand, what it is that maybe that I need to know. It could be the song Stand By Your Man, or whatever it happens to be. There could be a message there in the song. So try to listen, try to tune in. It is okay to tune in, not going to kill you. So try to do it for yourself. Try to connect, try to get in touch with your spiritual side. Again, on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened Living channel here, that you can, there should be a place where you feel safe. Always, if it makes you feel better, obviously protect yourself before you have that interaction with spirit, to see if there's some way that you can better connect, and make sure that you're safe doing so. Do all of these things, and there's other things that I would suggest maybe doing through meditation or through yoga, where you try to connect, but let the spirit world know what you're trying to do. Don't just do something and expect to get an answer. Set your intention. So if you're setting your intention out there that this is what you want to do, and this is the expectation that you have, see if spirit will comply. Now, I've said this before, don't make it so complicated that it makes it challenging for spirit, and challenge spirit. Okay, spirit, today I want you to turn on channel 5 and, at noon, and, there should be this commercial on, and then I'll know it's you. That's way too complicated, and something that a spirit may not be able to do. But if you are saying, it's like, I want to hear a bell, or I want to, hear something that makes sense to you, or smell an odor that makes sense to you, because you'll remind you of that individual. Make it so that it's something that spirit can relatively easily do, because you're forcing them out of a space that they're comfortable in into your realm, to try to get them to understand and perform, if you want to use a word. You're trying to get them to do something that could be very challenging for them. So don't make it overly challenging. Make the easiest way for it to have spirit communicate with you is in your dream state. So tell them, I'm going to be open, I'm receptive. Do 2 things. I want you to come to me in my dream state, please. And then I ask God, I ask the universe to please let me remember my dreams, so that I can retain the information of these conversations that I'm having with spirit. And then invite that person into the space. And then when you're going to bed at night, get calm, relax, make it a dark room. Don't just relax and relax. Don't go in with a lot of anticipation or any type of emotion. Just try to really relax. And that may be a place that you want to just try and meditate before bed, take a nice warm shower, and just relax and get into bed, and just see if you can connect. If you need helps or if you need help or tips in that regard, please let me know. I'm happy to help and give you information that may be helpful to you, because every spirit is different. Not every spirit has the same strength, the same frequency, way of communicating. So don't expect what you see or somebody else's experience to be your experience with spirit. You're different. Your vibration is different. So the way that you communicate and the way that you connect is going to be different for that individual. So please take a look at all those things and see if there's a way that you can connect yourself. If you cannot, call a medium, call me if you like, and we'll try and figure out what's going on, so that we can get you a little bit more comfortable in your home. So while I'm there, if you need to reach out to me, you can reach me at Robert Painley at spirit-focus.com. You can reach me at rapainley@gmail.com. You can reach me on Facebook, or go to my website, which is spirit-focus.com, spirit-focus.com. Or just Google me, Robert Painley, and all my stuff should come up. So that's the way that you can reach me with any questions that you have, or reach me through here through the Enlightened World Network. If you type something in here and you have a question, I'll get the message and I'll definitely respond. Okay. Thank you all. Let's see if there's anything else. It's 7:30. I'm trying to think if there's anything else where I wanted to come here with just a couple of examples tonight where spirit doesn't take no for an answer and doesn't leave. I'll give you one more before I leave for the night, unless some other things may come up. But when I first moved into this house with my husband, I'll take a sip here. When I first moved into this house, my husband and I were married at the time. We couldn't. So I moved in, and immediately I started to sense two spirits in this house. And one was in the bedroom, in the master bedroom closet. And this is where she liked to hang out. And the other one was actually my husband's father. And so the old lady, she was a little tiny, kind of round lady, very, very nice, very sweet. And just this was her house at one time. And she loved just hanging around, seeing what we were doing to the house, the changes we were making. And that lasted several years until we started to renovate the master bathroom. And that buttressed up against the master closet, the walk-in. And what happened there was we started tearing down walls, and she didn't like that a whole lot. It was kind of disturbing her, and she wasn't at peace any longer. And that's where we just moved her on, because okay, I'm done. I'm happy to have you around if you're not causing problems, but now that you're kind of upset at what we're doing to the house at this point, time for you to go. The other spirit was my husband's father, and he was annoying. I can't say that in any other way. And he had passed probably about 6 months before I met my husband. So I never met him personally. And what happened was I would be washing dishes, and I would stand at the sink, and in front of the sink, there is a large window there. And at night when I'm washing dishes, I would see him, in the window, looking at the window, and see him behind me, because it acts as a mirror. And so I'd look in the mirror in the window and see this reflection and see him back there. And do not appear. I don't want you to appear to me. This is what I know what you're trying to do. So let me rephrase. I knew what he was trying to do and show himself, in that window. He kept telling me, look up, look up, look up. And I knew that he would be back there. Again, as I've told everybody before, I have a little TV set that sits here on this corner, over my right shoulder, where I see spirit. So I can see spirit and sense spirit there. And sometimes I'm clairaudient, so I'll hear spirit, and I can hear him talking to me, telling me to look up, that he wants me to see him. And I kept refusing to do so. And he would not take no for an answer. And so sometimes it would just be so frustrating. I would actually have to leave the kitchen, walk out of the house, and go sit on the back bumper of my car or someplace, just to get away until I felt that it had passed in this house, because he was just obnoxious and annoying with it. He did have a message. So through all this time, this went on for about a year. He wasn't there every night, but he was there a lot of nights. And I would go and I would try to figure out what to do with Joe. And I didn't tell Mark for a while, my husband, what was happening. And then it just got to be so much. And then he asked me one time while I was sitting out of the bumper while he was out walking the dog. And I'm like, look, your dad's driving me crazy. This is what's going on. And he's asking me naturally, what does my dad want? I said, I don't know. And this is what happens with people that I'm very, very close to. I don't get the messages sometimes for them, because I've got a vested interest in what that message may be. So spirit sometimes muddles that message. And so I don't rely on it a whole lot. Unless it's something very, very specific that they tell me and how they tell me. We'll get into that another time. But in this instance, he just kept wanting to show himself. And I think it was just his way of introducing himself. I mean, I would see him where I see spirit over here over the shoulder. I could see him perfectly. But he just wanted to show himself. And so I wouldn't let him. And finally, it got to the point where, look, I need to send you to another medium, because I'm not going to deal with this issue any longer. And so it's for my husband and my mother-in-law. I bought them a session with a medium down here in South Florida, who's very well known for people who have recently passed. and I sent them there as a Christmas present many years ago. So it kind of ties in with the Christmas holiday here. And they went the first week of June or January, sorry, first week of January after the holidays. And the medium told them what the message was. And it made sense. He got his message across. And even though the message wasn't well received, the message was delivered. And he stopped bothering me. After I got him to a medium and he got a chance to say his piece, he left. He still would return on Father's Day, on Christmas, on my husband's birthday, and would stop the clock at the time of his death or something, let us know he was around. But other than that, it wasn't an everyday occurrence. But this too, even for myself, this spirit would not take no for an answer. He was just, omnipresent and wanted to be around and was not going to leave me alone until I got the message across. Even though I didn't deliver it, he got the message that was necessary, and that's what needed to happen. So that's just another example of, and again, this is not a spirit that was in residence. This was a visiting spirit. So there's nothing I really wanted to do as far as banishing the spirit or stopping, because it's my husband's father, and I didn't want to know that he has my husband's best interest at heart. So I don't want to keep him from the house or block him in some way. But he didn't want to calm his energy down, just did not want to go there. And now we have a nice little detente. And when he communicates with me or when he comes through, it's no longer obnoxious in that way. He's very, very respectful of me and my time and the message, and only gives me messages now unless there's something really, really pertinent, germane, specific to Mark or his mom, my mother-in-law, so that they get the message. It's only happened a couple of times since then, but it really comes through in spades for what he wants to communicate now, and it really has to be important for him to intercede or intervene. So those again are some more interesting spirits that I have. The other spirits that would not take no, I've had this all my life, and I've had other spirits that just wouldn't take no for an answer. Like one of my spirit guides, the Native American spirit guide back in the woods, who, when he talks to me, I've made this comment before, he's a bit annoying because he answers in rhetorical questions all the time, which kind of drives me crazy. And he's done this since I was a little kid. I understand the reasoning and the rationale behind what he did when I was that young, because in the mind of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, going back in the woods, and I would encounter this spirit back in the woods. And when we would communicate with one another, he would test me, because again, I'm coming from a child's perspective. So, I would ask a question like, what are you doing? And he would answer with, what do you think I'm doing? And so when I would answer, he would either give me a yes or no and make me, in my own mind, try to figure out what it was, so that because there are concepts that I wouldn't be able to understand. If he would have told me directly, that I probably wouldn't. I didn't have his cultural background, and I didn't have, maybe he didn't understand me as a child and what I would understand in at that age. And subsequent to that, all my life now as a spirit guide, he does the same thing. So I can't get rid of him, don't want to. But he has that annoyance factor of being very, very rhetorical with me sometimes. What it does do still, even in 50 plus years, is to try to let me know that he's in control of the thought process and challenges me to think about what is happening and things that I wouldn't normally do myself. It's one thing to be told such and such is going to happen. It's another thing to try to analyze yourself why you're having these feelings and what is coming up there. So he really does try. He tests me. He makes sure that I become a better medium through that communication, and try to make sure that I'm absolutely steadfast and right in my communication skill set, so that when I'm delivering information to my clients or anybody that I know that I'm giving a message to, that I am accurate in what I'm giving, and that I don't provide them with information that I speculate on, more that is actual information that I'm truly getting, that's very, very specific for that client. One such example, I just had a reading a couple days ago where all packed up. ready to leave. 4 hour reading, long reading. But when I was done, I had already blown out my candle, said my prayers, getting ready to leave. And as I picked up my bag to get out the door, this spirit came through. And it was again, it's like, hey, it's a Christmas story. This is good. So it came through in the form of about maybe a foot and a half long, or 2 foot long, like a stick almost of light. And around it was red and green lights. Very strange. Never saw anything like that before from a spirit. So I got this Christmassy vibe with it. And I asked my client, you got somebody in here who has something really close connection with Christmas. What is this with Christmas? And he said his grandmother did. I said, that's not who this is. You might get grandmother energy associated with this, but this is on your mom's side of the family. This seems older. I'm like, who's Millie or Millicent? Because my great grandmother on my mom's side was Millie. I'm like, that's who this is. And, it's very, very specific to Millie, very, very specific to this Christmas connection. And Millie's been around him his whole life. He didn't know that. But she showed me scenes for the future for him and said, some very personal things that I won't get into here. He hasn't given me permission to do so, but gave me some very specifics about married life and children and things where it was specific information for him that he understood and knows what's happening. So there is that connection. I wish I could go into more detail. I'll have to get permission before I give his whole story. But as far as the information is concerned, very, very specific and around him all the time and never knew that. So it's very, very good. And this spirit will also be around his children. So it's wonderful information. It's great when they come through and give that type of specificity to what's happening. But most of the ones that we've talked about today have all been visiting spirits. And what I wanted to kind of communicate here this evening is it's very, very challenging for me to get rid of visiting energy. Imagine, you're an exterminator. And if you say that you have a rat problem and you call an exterminator to come over and get the rats know that you're coming. So the rats all go to the neighbor's house. They're all over there. And then when I come, I'm not seeing rats. I'm not feeling rats. I'm not sensing rats. There's no rats to kill. So I leave, not able to do my job. And what happens after I leave? Rats come back in. Same thing. I hate to equate spirit with rats, but again, I use the exterminator reference. But spirit is the same way. So my husband says I'm terrible with analogies, and I am. But so now you know. But imagine when I come that a visiting spirit is like that. They may be visiting for days or weeks or something at your house, but they know I'm coming and they know what I can do as far as banishing or removing them, and they get afraid because they don't know what I'm going to do, but they sense what I'm going to do. And they will pull their energy back very far. They won't be there at the time that I'm there. If it's in a condo or a hotel or something, they may leave the room so that I can't sense or feel them. So understand that happens a lot. So when it's a visiting spirit, I try to make sure people understand that I'm there and I can communicate with the spirit if the spirit wants to communicate. If it's a spirit in residence, obviously that's something that I can kind of sink my teeth into, as it were, because I can work with that energy. The energy's in the house, it's palpable, it's not going anywhere. So understand that there's a difference, much like the story that I told you this evening about the gentleman who has the mother showing up every now and again, who gets into the crawl space, the roof, in between the roof and the ceiling, and makes noise up there. That's hard energy to move away. And again, it's his mother. Why would I take away energy that is trying to help her son and give this information? A lot of times spirit doesn't realize what they're doing and the potential harm or discomfort that they're causing in a home. So that is what I'm good at explaining to a spirit, to just kind of pull their energy back again. So you'll be able to tell, yourself if there's something around you all the time, or whether it's visiting. If it's somebody known to you, more than likely, for the most part, they are visiting and not usually there in residence. I would say that happens probably 75% of the time. I'd say they're just kind of popping in, checking out what's going on, trying to give you a message and popping back out again. But if it's a spirit that's in residence, this is a spirit that you really need to kind of work with in a different way and try to remove them from the house if they're not being beneficial to the house. And a lot of times I'll do that in a very beneficial way so that the connection stays the same, and promise them when they cross over that they'll be allowed to come back and visit occasionally. And that usually helps do the trick, where they're not, a lot of times when they're in residence, they're stubborn and they don't want to go, and they feel that this is the best way to communicate with their loved one, so that they don't want to leave, because they don't trust that they're going to be able to have that influence over that loved one any longer. And that's the convincing part, and kind of the spiritual psychologist part that I have to play on occasion with these types of spirits, so that they understand that, again, a loving, forgiving God will allow you to get the messages across as you need to do that, but you won't know how that works until you actually cross. So you have to have a little bit of faith in the process, and faith in God, faith in something larger than yourself, so that you can help communicate and help that process along. A lot to talk about tonight in this regard. And these are just several examples of what happens when a spirit doesn't want to leave. And we talked about nice ones. We haven't gotten anything that is bad. So again, there are varying degrees of bad. There are negative energy. There's negative energy. There's poltergeist. There's spirit in residence that are just nasty. There's spirits that are unknown to you that are nasty. There's interdimensional stuff. There is just really nasty stuff. There's demonic stuff. There's all kind. Just could be a spirit that was nasty in this life and kept that same disposition. They haven't crossed fully, and they still have that nasty demeanor about them. It can be anywhere on that spectrum. If that happens in their residence, that's something that, if you can't deal with it and they're being particularly mischievous or something, then you're going to want to get rid of that energy. And that's where you're going to really need to call a medium. Don't put up with that type of negative. You don't need negativity in your life at all, negative energy at all. It's not good. Anytime you're having negative energy affect you, it's not good. If you're at your job and you had someone who was negative, or a negative boss, or negative impact from a situation, you try to mitigate that negativity. You need to do the same thing in your life, in your spiritual life. If you have something that's not serving you, then you need to let that go and find another way to find your spiritual center. So I would encourage everyone to do that in whatever way makes sense to you. And if you need help on that way, I don't just work with spirit. There's a variety of things that I do, and I do very well. Again, one of them is working with people's spiritual life path. So if you have a problem where you're off your path for some whatever reason, some people, there's an exit ramp and you need to get an on ramp again. That is working with spiritual energy and tapping into your spirit guides to figure out where you need to be, what you're supposed to be doing with your life, how you're supposed to be getting there, what's not serving you and what is serving you. Hauntings, which is one of the primary areas that I'm known for as far as working with that type of energy. And again, I do Reiki, I do pet Reiki, and I work with pets a lot because I happen to have a very good connection with animals to be able to ascertain what's wrong with them or what they're trying to say, if they had a voice, that you could understand what they need, what their needs are, so that, or if they're in pain, if there's something wrong. And those are areas that I work with all the time. So if you need help in that regard, please let me know. Again, you can reach me at rapainley@gmail.com, robertpainley@spirit-focus.com, and just leave a message here. But that'll do it for tonight. I think I've talked enough for one evening on this particular subject matter. But if you have questions on how to get rid of something that's nasty, or you don't understand what's in the house, or you need to find out what the message is, please let me know. Happy to help you in any way I can. And have a great holiday that's coming up here. I'm assuming I'll have a couple more shows perhaps before Christmas. But I do wish you all a very happy and safe holiday season. While you're out traveling with COVID the way that it is in the country and around the world at the moment, please stay safe. Please take care of your loved ones, and please take care of yourself. Let's all get through this all together, get the vaccine, and come out of this on the other side, and we can all have a much happier, healthier 2021. Okay? Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.